you showed us, that comparison between the $3 million and the $30 million contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is the 30 million, is that a sweet spot? I mean, why not 50? Why not 100? Like, is there sort of an upper end to that range of that sweet spot range as well?
Well, the sweet spot for me is I had a minimum. I wouldn't bid on anything that, unless it was strategic, and I'm talking about it got us into a new market space or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I considered anything, 8 million and below as not even worth my time. 8 million, 8 million starts becoming real money, especially if it's
what's the upper end on that though?
Well, this is forever big. You know what I mean? Up to
Mm-hmm.
115 million, would be the ideal one. However, in order to win something that big, you gotta have some serious credentials and past performances. You can't get away if you're bidding on something. For example, when I was the biggest one that I personally won for my company was 65 million, and we were using some pretty sizable past performances because they don't want just 3 or 4; they wanted 6. So we're providing 3 past performances ourselves because you can't have a sub provide more past performances than you. And we also thought it would strengthen our bid and those type of things. So
Gotcha.
we provided 3 past performances. However, by that time, we had 3 big ones to give them. We had actually we had the first one, the bottom, and then we had the recompete. They count as 2 separate contracts. The recompete, because we won it a second time.
So what I'm getting is that the criteria, because it's like a search almost, right? Like, you've got this giant universe of potential contracts, and you're
that's it. Yeah. Well, at any given time, there's between 20 and 30,000, solicitations in various phases.
So I'm looking at this, the diagram that you had up there a moment ago, and like those are the criteria, right? Like you want it to be big enough that you can bring in a partner or two in order to account for the past performances, but small enough that the past performance to keep the number of past performances down to, as you say, 3 or 4, right? That's kind of those are your search criteria.
Those are your sweet spots until you get more past performances, and then you can start, edging up. So if this would have been, instead of being a $15 million prime contract, let's say it was a 30 million, they wouldn't have, they would have wanted to see a sizable prime contract. 15 million is probably that upper limit of what they would have accepted without seeing at least prime contract experience.
So how many of those, like if you kind of narrow the universe down to the contracts that look like the one on the left there, how many of those are out there? Like what's that field look like?
Well, it's different. I wish there was, I could give you an answer, because there's all kinds of different industries. I could say, well, are you a Department of Energy company? Are you a Department of State? Or are you a Navy or an Air Force? The one thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to be, and I use this as an example. There's a company who does high-end IT work, cybersecurity. And I told him, I said, there's 2 strategies that you have. And I'm going to give you both of them, and they're contradictory, but they're also both relevant. And so now it sounds like I'm going to be talking out both sides of my face. I'm going to be Janice's face for just a second. You can't be everybody you can't be everything to everybody. That just does not work. Now, and what do I mean by that? This guy, this is what he wanted to do. He says, I'm going to be a cybersecurity company, and I'm going to go after federal government contracts. And I said, where? The federal government. And I said, well, that's a pretty damn big organization. How are you going to go deep and know all the stuff you need to know in order to be competitive to win it? And what happens is he says, no, well, I'll bid on things, when they pop up. Well, I said, let's just look at this. Let's just look at who's buying your service. And so we looked at all the different organizations, and this is something that comes out of GovOne, which is a business intelligence subscription. It costs about $1,000 a month, and there's something magical about that number, and I'll explain it to you here in a minute. But it's a business intelligence subscription that gives you all this insights. So these are all of the organizations that were having proposals that dealt with this line of work. And I said, why in the world are you going to be messing around with State Department, the VA, when the Air Force has, almost 180 opportunities coming out within the next 2 years. Why don't you focus all your efforts on everything, and so the guy says, no, I'll focus on the Air Force. But I said, well, even the Air Force is too big of an organization because the Air Force is pretty damn massive. You know what I mean? So I said, well, let's dig down a little bit deeper. So we dug down a little bit deeper. So out of these 170 some, opportunities that was coming out in his service area, 112 was coming out of one command, Air Force Material Command. Now, again, Air Force Material Command, one could very easily argue is too big, that he really needed to neck it down to even that and the target. What you don't want to do is fall in a trap of coming in a lot of second places, because that's just like kissing your sister. You get nothing out of it. It's just.
Randall, was that based upon the specific NAICS code?
Yes, that was NAICS code and also keywords. But that's right. NAICS codes does a lot. However, NAICS codes, it gets kind of fuzzy because these NAICS codes, they haven't been updated in, probably a quarter of a century. There's no such thing that says cybersecurity, information security. There's nothing like that. So a lot of it. So where does cybersecurity fit? Does it fit in management consulting? Does it fit in computer services, software development? And it could fit in any number of 15 of them. So this was based mostly on keyword search for cybersecurity. So that's what you have to do. So there's the ivory tower. You got to focus. And the reason why you got to focus is because in order to write a winning proposal, that's a hell of a lot more difficult than just writing a proposal. You got to demonstrate your understanding of the organization, their culture, their mission, all of those different things. You got to add value. You got to understand their risk tolerance. You got to understand what contractors they like, which ones they don't like. Are they risk averse? Are they open to innovation? Is GAO clubbing them for being a high risk enterprise? Are they on GAO's high risk, hit list? All these different things, so that you got to know, you got to dig really deep in it. And you can't do it for every organization. So that's the ivory tower. Now, this is what I'm going to tell you what you do as a small business. As a small business, what I recommend that you do, and let me show you a company here. Boom. This is a company that I'm working with right now, and they haven't made a single dollar in revenue yet, not a single dollar. However, look at their credentials, that they have going around them. They've proven themselves to be mature with ISO 9001. ISO 27001 is the hottest thing going right now because it deals with information security. You can't pick up a newspaper and not see, where, an organization's been hacked, ransomware, hell, even the pipeline. I live on the East Coast, and the ransomware attack was the Colonial Pipeline. It shut down the East Coast. So like I said, this is relevant, and there's not a single DoD or national security relevant contract that does not deal with some component of information that the government wants to keep secure. Even janitorial service contracts. Why? Because they're usually in facilities that have classified material. So, there's no such thing as a classified toilet, but if you're a janitorial services company and you're going after that janitorial services contract at Langley at the CIA, if you don't demonstrate that you understand the importance of security, they're going to shoot you before you even walk on base. Because that's very important to their culture. So what I recommend that folks do is they create credentials, like these right here. And then what they do is they shotgun it out. So, I kind of coach a program where, I give them 7,000 business development contacts that I've curated, over time. However, I show them where to find other relevant business development, executives who can either give them subcontracts, invite them on bid teams, or be willing to be one of their partners on one of their bids. And I tell them, I said, if you blast out to 10,000 of these, expect a 1.5% hit rate. And what I mean by that is there's going to be 1.5% of the people that you shotgun this, your message out to, your very, very, very sexy message right here, showing how qualified you are, as a small business. There's going to be 1.5% that's going to come back to you, and during a period of about 2 years, they're going to be able to make your life better somehow.